Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and welcome to another quick tank review. This time we're looking at the new Tier 6 German tank destroyer, the Nashorn. Now this tank is a hell of a sniper. It's a complete glass cannon, so if that sounds like the kind of tank that you're interested at Tier 6, able to whittle down its enemies at long ranges and really put out some serious DPM, then stay tuned, this might be the tank for you. And if you're not a lover of German tank destroyers, then stay tuned as well and I'll tell you how you should try and avoid being dominated by this beast. So let's take a quick look at the Nashorn stats. It's got 600 hit points, which is fairly standard for a tier 6 tank destroyer. It weighs just shy of 24 tons, and its 300 brake horsepower engine means that it doesn't get the best specific power ratio, which is 12.5 when it's fully equipped, which means that this thing can sometimes struggle to get up to its top speed limit of 40 kilometers an hour. However, this thing does have excellent traverse speed, 36 degrees. It's very, very hard to be able to try and outmaneuver one of these and try and get its flank because it's literally going to be just turning that quickly. Now to give you a brief overview of the armor, it basically doesn't have any. Let's go into WOT tank viewer anyway to take a look. So here you go, here's our key down the bottom. We can see the thickest part of the armor is 35 and that seems to be the gun. There is a bit of spaced armor up here, however it is only 15 millimeters thick. And that's right, that does count as a hitbox, so you can take advantage of that. As we can see, there's 30 millimeters of armor on the lower plate and on the driver's hatch, although they're both very, very flat. So realistically, at tier 6, anything that shoots you is going to go through. When you're trying to avoid fire in the Nashorn, you probably want to hope that they shoot your tracks or angle your front very, very, very highly and try and hope that your 15 millimeters of armor at a ridiculous angle will allow you to avoid any damage. But let's be honest, basically if you get shot in the Nashorn, you're going to be tanking with your hit points. So you've heard that whereas this tank has got great top speed limit, it's got great traverse speed, it doesn't really have the engine power to be able to utilize it to its max in every situation. You've also heard that this tank has basically got no armor, so you must be thinking, well, what are going to be the benefits to it? Well, this tank gets incredible view range of 390. If you combine this with binoculars, then you're going to have massive view range that really will allow you to spot your enemies at the kind of distances that you need. You really need to get the drop on the enemy, i.e. you need to be able to shoot them before they can see you. And so the fact that this German tank destroyer line has got such huge view range, it really does help. Now the gun in this tank is an 88. It's an absolutely fantastic gun, which is competitive on a Jagdpanther. Quite a few people do argue that they use the 88 over the 105 on the Jagdpanther. However, unlike the Jagdpanther, this is a tier 6 tank rather than a tier 7 tank. And so already you might be thinking that this is going to be a fantastic gun at tier 6, and you would be right, it really is. The rate of fire on this tank is amazing, 9.52 rounds a minute with 240 alpha damage. Now the alpha damage is not brilliant when you consider that, for example, the SU-100 already gets the option of having 122mm. However, we know that that 122mm on the SU-100 doesn't really pack the penetration that this tank does, and it's over 200 with its standard rounds, 203mm of penetration. That's enough to really contest with any tank that you can meet, even the tier 8 tanks, even the tier 8 heavy tanks. 203mm is about enough really to go through them frontally, as long as they're not angled. However, if you really need to be sure, you can load APCR rounds, and they will have a standard 237mm of penetration. This tank's HE ammo is fairly weak at 44mm of penetration, and only having 295 alpha. That's irrelevant really, as you're probably going to be using the AP rounds and the devastating rate of fire to take out your enemies. Now the accuracy on this tank is absolutely superb, 0.32. You're able to hit every shot really as long as you aim well. And with 1.9 seconds aim time, you're going to be able to fire those shots really quickly once you've scoped out your target. So that's everything that you really need to know about the Nashorn in the garage. Let's take a look at how it performs in some gameplay. So we're playing on Muravanka. We're in a tier 8 game. As we can see, there are very few tier 6s on our side. And for some reason, no tier 7 tanks on our team, just tier 6s and tier 8s. So with over 2/3 of the team at tier 8, you've got to be thinking, if you're in a tier 6 tank, that's kind of a big deal. But the thing is this isn't really any ordinary tier 6 tank. This is a tier 6 tank with an 88, with 203mm of penetration, which allows it to really be competitive, even in these high tier games. So we've spotted where the T-29 is. We're going to fire one blind, and then we're going to zoom out while holding our right mouse button in the same location. And continue to fire shots at him. This is a little tactic that I do. But basically, if you're aiming in the same spot in the first person, firstly, you can't have the same awareness around you, so it's good to lock your gun in place where you last spotted the enemy and keep firing. And when you zoom out into third person, you're still firing in exactly the same spot, but you have that awareness of what's going on around you while you're trying to blind fire somebody. So, you can see that I'm using a camouflage net and binoculars. That means in these kind of situations, if you can get into one of the bushes, that you've got incredible view range out of the bush. Now the Nashorn's camo rating is pretty darn good. That means that in these kind of situations, such as in the woods on Muravanka on an encounter game, oh, bit of a clutch shot there, but I fired into his superstructure, which was angled, which meant that we didn't get to do any damage to him. It was a bit of a miss shot, if I'm honest with you. But just check out this DPM on the Indenpanzer that we're shooting at here. The lovely rate of fire on this 88 allows us to really start to devastate our enemies. We fire one blind there. But the shot was not aimed for long enough. That one was, though. And here we're just taking apart these tier 8 medium tanks from range. And if this is your kind of gameplay, this is really what you need to be doing in the Nashorn. That's taking out your enemies from afar. I haven't even been spotted this game, yet I've already done 1,200 damage and got a kill on a tier 8 tank. I seem to be a bit gung-ho this round. And oh dear, what's this guy doing? I think I'm being trolled. Oh well, I physically couldn't get away from him, so I had to watch out. I think I'm giving him a bit of a "what are you doing there?" And then I let it go. Shooting him won't achieve anything, let's just let it go and move on. That bloomin' McDonald's tank coming from behind. Look at him, he's even aiming at me. Maybe it's the first time he's seen this tank. See, I'm getting distracted by him, and this is a very good example of not going tilted a game. I should be just ignoring him. What I'm worried about at the moment is the fact that the enemies are capping the base, but more importantly that there was a super Pershing last spotted to our north. And if I get spotted in the open, quite a few, well, a lot of the enemy tanks are going to basically shave off more than half my health, and one of them, the ISU-152, can one-hit me. That super Pershing spotted north has actually just been respotted in the cap circle, which means that it's safe to progress now. All we really have to worry about is the T-34 that was last spotted at C3 on the ridgeline. So we're going to take an opportunity against the super Pershing here, and we haven't been spotted yet. So we aim just outside of the spaced armor of the super Pershing, and yeah, we don't get spotted. As far as I'm aware, I'm not spotted right now. So we try and fire one into the back of the ISU there, but we're unable to catch him. This game, I'm firing like a bit of a donkey, if I'm honest with you. I don't know what I was doing. I kind of wanted to YOLO a lot of shots. I'm not picking my opportunities, and considering how accurate and how short the aim time is on this tank, I should be hitting a lot more targets. I'm really just taking my chances and hoping to hit the targets. So right now you see me loading a premium round, and that's because I might only get one shot, and I want to make sure it goes in, because this shot is to save the game. I come round slightly here, and thankfully it was an AMX. So what you could see there is the rather fantastic gun arc on the Nashorn. That actually means that when you come round corners, you can sort of be aiming quite far left, as you can see. We have a very thin shot here. Actually, he comes up the slope, which gives us a nice opportunity to take him out. And that was great. We really saved the game there. I'm not sure if anyone else would have interrupted the AMX. But again, I'm just going to highlight the gun arc on this tank. I didn't really highlight in the garage, but I'd like to point out now that it's quite wide for a tank destroyer, which gives you quite a lot of flexibility. So we just take his track off from behind. He starts turning his ridiculously slow turret round. I decide to keep him retracked, just so I can get some assistance damage from the team. I low roll there, only doing 219, leaving him on 3 health. But we finish him off thanks to our great rate of fire. So we can take a few things from this game. One, that the Nashorn's camo rating is actually pretty good. We didn't get spotted until well into the game, and we were able to put out quite a lot of damage and get a few kills even before we were spotted. A good example of that was that Super Pershing, who we were shooting from range, and even after we fired at him, we still remained unspotted. Also, you can see that this tank is not slow, unlike the Tier 7 PZSFL, which means that it can motor around and get to where it's needed to be able to defend the game. You also got to see the gun arc in this tank that I'd like to highlight. That adds quite a lot of flexibility when you're using binoculars and camo nets so that you're able to aim left and right without moving your tracks and therefore deactivating your binoculars and removing that camo bonus that you would get from your net. Also, the gun arc is very useful for coming around corners because it can give you that extra flexibility to be able to shoot the enemy tank without then coming around the corner and then turning your tank. So you saw how the Nashorn can perform in a game with nearly 70% Tier 8 tanks. Let's take a look at some quick post-game stats. So you can see we're able to get 1,750 experience for that game, a pretty good result. And we were able to get the Hallidans medal, which is for killing at least 3 tanks which are 2 tiers higher than you. And as we were able to defend against the AMX 1390, we got the Defender medal as we might have saved the game at the end. Interestingly, all those blind shots that I fired at that T29 in the woods did absolutely nothing. What that meant is that we got a fairly mediocre amount of damage, 2,400. However, we were able to outperform a lot of the Tier 8 tank destroyers and many of the Tier 8 heavy and medium tanks. Because of the fact that we were 2 tiers lower than most of our allies, we managed to get the most experience in the game, but we got very little spotting, but that's because we had to play it very carefully and stay out most of the line of fire. So here we go, we're playing on Malinovka. We can see that there are 6 Tier 8 tanks on the enemy team. But there are 3 Tier 7s and the rest are Tier 6s. So this is still not a very good matchup for the Nashorn, but it's not bad. Now you saw me there realize I started to kind of just go up the hill for the sake of going up the hill because I believe so strongly that taking the hill is that important on Malinovka in encounter. However, as we can see, most of our team is going up there. So I thought, well, I'll provide a different set of eyes from a different location and a different point of view to be able to shoot the enemies. And so I'm advancing down here into this CD kind of 5-6 area. And I'm going to show you just what the Nashorn is good for. So we're hiding most of our tank here in the bushes. We didn't have very long there to activate our binoculars, but it looks like we got a spot on the T29 anyway. I take a chance at his turret. I don't get spotted, and that's why Sixth Sense is such a good thing to have in this tank. So now I'm blind firing at his turret, unable to get him, I think. And then I look left and I go, oh yes, Tier 8 heavy tanks in the side? Okay. I'll just check out this rate of fire. The accuracy. Everything that you want from a German tank destroyer here. Taking huge chunks out of that stock Tiger 2's turret. Due to the fantastic penetration on this tank, we're able to go through even the front of his turret, even though it is stock. That was a bit of a clutch shot, but it was the last chance I had. Went slightly high and right. I'm just looking to see what this T150 is up to. And he seems to be very ambitious. He's thinking, I can just flank all the enemies. But I think that's a little too early. It was a really good idea, mate. But I think it was just too early in the game to do that. Very ambitious. So here we can see us giving lead, even at 500 meters plus. When you're aiming up at the enemies, that's quite tricky. Oh, he's going very fast backwards. That Tiger 2 is out of there. He doesn't know what's going on. He just keeps looking at his side. So I tried to give a lot of lead there to the T-44. He stopped though. Check out that accuracy, guys. That's what this tank is all about. And really, the enemies have just fallen completely back. They're completely routing right now. The Tiger 2 died. We nailed the KV-1S. I tried to blind fire him. We don't make the kill. Now we get to shoot the tracks of that M6. So what you saw me do there is aim for his tracks. That's just how accurate the Nashorn is. You can really pinpoint those weak points on the enemy. You're not just aiming to penetrate at these kind of distances of 300 meters. You can aim to literally hit weak points on the enemy. And we're running an absolute riot through the enemy right now. We've done over 3,000 damage just over 3.5 minutes into the game. And most of that has been done to tier 8 tanks. And now we're starting to pick apart our tier 6 allies. So, well, not allies, so to say, our counterparts, our tier 6 counterparts. Just a touch too much lead there on that M4. So really, this battle is completely won. Our team played the game pretty much perfectly. They took the hill on Malinovka aggressively on the encounter game mode. And with a little bit of fire support from almost one of the best tier 6 tanks to give fire support in the game, Nashorn, we're able to really just totally dominate that flank. Now we're going to see just why you don't go down to these buildings. A quarter of the enemy team have invested themselves down here, including one of the best players on the enemy team in the Jagdpanther 2, who really needed to do a really good role for his team. And situating himself down here by the buildings is just really not going to carry the game. So we just saw our Jagdpanther 2 ally got shot by the enemy Jagdpanther, who has not been spotted yet but has picked up 2 kills now. It's very likely that he's going to be behind some of the buildings. We're going to go for the T-20. So, interestingly, you saw me got nailed there. We got nailed for 260 damage, and, just going to pause it for a second, our engine got knocked out. So we can see here that we got nailed in the lower plate once by a T-20. He was using a 90mm and he rolled for 260 damage. And it took out our engine. So try not to get shot in the Nashorn. Really, it doesn't have any armor, as we mentioned in the garage. But importantly, module damage on the engine from the lower plate is very likely. But these are the kind of situations you want to be in. Oh god, not so happy now. Stand and fight. We were so lucky to not die there. That KV-3, unless he was still using the 107mm, would have totally destroyed us with the 122. So we bounced off the Jagdpanther there. Really cheeky side armor. But he couldn't stop us from taking our scalp at the end of the game. So there we go. That was almost a perfect example of what the Nashorn is good for. Engaging its opponents at long ranges when it's not spotted and using its amazing DPM, accuracy, and pretty darn good penetration at tier 6 to just eliminate its enemies. If you want to be successful in this tank, these are the kind of situations that you're going to have to try and put yourself in. It is quite a challenging skill to have the kind of level of map knowledge and even being able to read the team list to think about how the engagements are going to go down, to put yourself in these kind of situations. But that's my tip to you if you want to play the Nashorn, is really think about that, think about where you can go to remain unspotted for as long as possible, but still put damage out on the opponents. Now really, that is a kind of tactic that you want to employ in all tank destroyers, but I think the fact that the Nashorn has such little armor and almost no chance to bounce if it does get shot really emphasizes the importance that it really does need to be sneaky, find vantage points, and then rain death upon the enemy from them. One thing I kind of wanted to highlight in the gameplay is just how bad the armor is. I don't really have a replay which shows it, but for example, if a light tank with an auto loader or even an auto cannon finds you, he can basically decimate your tank. A good example would be a 5916 with that tiny little pop gun. I think it's a 76mm pop gun. It unloads really quickly, it has terrible penetration, but it's more than enough to give you a hell of a lot of trouble. Best example I can recommend if you want to see just how bad the armor is, look at my tank review of the next tank up in the line, the PZSFL at tier 7, and towards the end of the video you can see just how badly it does against light tanks. Anyway, let's take a look at some post-game stats. So here are the results from the game. We managed to get 4,746 experience for our double. That means that this was a 2,373 experience game without the double, and 1,582 without a premium account or any kind of bonus experience. We managed to do 4,000 damage in that game, and there were quite a few tier 8s and tier 7s, which meant that that's why we got a lot of experience. And we also did 1,300 damage upon detecting. Most of that was against the M4 and the T20 that we spotted at the end of the game. We managed to get 4 kills, but we still got a Confederate medal, which highlights just how many targets we were able to hit with our high rate of fire and very good accuracy. Now, I only hit 22 out of 28 shots in this game, which doesn't really justify the accuracy of the gun, but I was engaging at very long ranges, and because of the rate of fire of this gun, I really like to chance my shots and just hope that they go in. In other tank destroyers with worse rate of fire, you have to really invest a lot more in your shots. For example, if you play an SU-100 and you use the 122mm on it, your rate of fire is pretty bad, and you're investing a lot in those 390 alpha damage shots. However, when you think about it, the Nashorn only needs to hit its target twice, and it's done on average 480 damage compared to the SU-100, which will be floundering around at 390. Of course, needless to say, the SU-100 does have a lot of other advantages, and the alpha damage in itself can be an advantage as well. But high alpha damage guns are not going to be to everyone's favor, and some of you guys will just like this lovely 88 on the Nashorn. Now, I can tell you that this tank was a pretty big pleasure for me to play. It's a strong entry and a tier 6 tank destroyer, and really, you'll have a lot of fun in this if you manage to get yourself in situations like you've seen in this video. However, the lack of armor can be frustrating. You're basically never going to bounce anything, and really, your only defense is your offense. I still think that the Nashorn is a really good entry at tier 6. I don't really recommend the tier 7 PZSFL, but once you reach tier 8, the Borsig is an absolute beauty. And stay tuned, guys, because if you're interested, I have a quick tank review which has got some pretty darn interesting and nice gameplay footage coming up for the Borsig. Anyway, guys, if you've enjoyed this video or it's been useful to you, please consider rating it down below. And let me know in the comments what you think about the Nashorn. Did you like it? Have you played it? Do you think the fact that it has no armor is a balancing factor to the tank, or does it just make it not very enjoyable for you at all? How do you think, for example, it plays against the Jagdpanzer IV? Anyway, as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.